This is a specific application of the more general prism, which we have already seen. This is the application to the case of elective courses in an intensive ESL program, where the core courses have a much more specific framework in terms of student learning outcomes, and the core courses are organized by level. Whereas, as is often the case with electives, students make choices according to the content of the elective, or the focus of the elective, the skill set of the elective, and therefore the classes are more mixed in terms of levels of English language proficiency. So in this case, the inputs to the prism are still the student learning outcomes, but the ones that might be relevant. So for example, if the elective is a literature class, then the learning outcomes in terms of reading are going to come into play here. Secondly, we, as always, we should do an ad hoc needs assessment, which means sitting down at the beginning of the course with the group that has assembled and talking to them about why they chose this particular elective, what they want to get out of it, what particular language areas, skill areas they want to work on, and so on. And then finally, it's important as an elective instructor to have some sort of interaction with core course instructors. So again, to take the literature example, if there's a core course in reading and writing, for example, or reading and vocabulary development, or whatever it may be, you will want to know what the instructor of that class has selected in terms of text, especially if a particular book, or a book of short stories, or even a non-fiction book, so that we try and complement that. If the core class has a non-fiction book, then obviously we'll go for fiction. If the core course has short stories, then maybe we'll go for a full-length novel, and so on. The procedures within the prism that take place during mostly the first week of the class is the application of the instructor's own experience to this particular area, negotiations with the class, not only looking at needs and language issues, but also in terms of interests and preferences. So again, to take the literature example, rather than make a commitment to a particular text, we're going to maybe even bring a sample of some texts that we might read, and have the students look through them and talk about them and make informed choices. While this is going on, there will be some learner training in terms of procedures and strategies that are going to be brought to bear to the material in this particular elective. Coming out of that, exiting the prism, we will have course goals and skill specifications as always. We'll have some idea of what the learning teaching cycle looks like. For example, in a reading class, we might have literature circles one day a week where students sit in groups and have specified tasks with relation to the chapter that they've read that week. There will be a menu of tasks and projects, either short-term projects or a project extending across the whole course. The students will feel engaged because they've been involved in the activities in the prism. They will understand why the course content is the way it is, and they will be invested in it because they help select it. And finally, the instructor, again through a process of reflection and being aware of what all this means, will be settling into a particular set of behaviors which represent an appropriate role for this particular elective class. So that's a little bit more specific in terms of the application of our prism to the process of developing a language course.